Hi, everybody. Welcome to the April edition of the Finger Lakes Art Series. We have lucky enough tonight to have Tony Leuzzi with us from Rochester. He is a poet, critic, art maker. I was wondering what that meant.
I don't like the word ist. I don't like ist at the end of things. Those are pretentious, so I just say art maker.
Art maker. Okay. We'll ask you about the art you make later. His books of poems include Radiant Losses, The Burning Door, Meditation Archipelago, and Fog Notes. And Passwords Primeval is a collection of his interviews with 20 American poets. And I know that Tony also writes for the Brooklyn Rail as a critic. Yeah. He's won numerous teaching awards, including the Wesley T. Hansen Award, and he's the recipient of SUNY Chancellor Award for Scholarship and Creativity. What else can I say about you? I have one of your other book that you have that you don't mention here. I was reading another one of your books. It's really good. Wait, can you announce it?
It might have been a chapbook or something, which led to a book.
No. Fake book?
Yeah, that's a chapbook.
Is it?
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a big
yeah.
chapbook.
It's really a chapbook towards The Burning Door.
Oh, it's great. It's terrific. So I guess he's published among other places, Lambda Literary, Scout Poetry, American Literary Review, Great River Review, and the Kenyon Review. Tony Leuzzi. Did you say Leuzzi? Do you guys say Leuzzi?
I say Leuzzi. It's the way it says it in Italy. It's the way it's said.
I tell people that they still butcher it.
Yeah.
I'm Guida. So yeah.
You say Guida.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Right.
I get a lot of Louisi.
Oh.
I get a lot of Louisi, Lazuzzi.
We could go on. Tony Leuzzi.
All right. Thank you. It's a small enough group, so I want to just forego the microphone. I don't think we need that. Can you hear me decently? Okay, great.
Yes.
I'm just going to read you a few poems from this, and then you can ask me any kind of questions you want about the making of the book. I talked to George about this before, and he said he likes to have a little bit of a talk, and I said, well, I do have a lot of things to say about how this particular book came into being. Each book, as you know, and I'm talking to poets, any collections you put together has its own story of how they came into being. This one, I think, is probably worth telling. So can you see me, or do you want me to move a little bit? Okay. So I'll start with this, but I am warning you, it's not a terribly upbeat book. Get the title, Fog Notes. The cover, I think, indicates a kind of introspection or kind of, the lead poem, which I will start with, it's a combination of different notions of fog, including my mother's early dementia. So there's some of that going on there too. So those were things that all went into the making of the book. When I had read for all of you back last year at some point, I had, this book was done, but I didn't share it yet. I just figured the book can't be ready yet. So this is Fog. So immersive and mysterious, this afternoon in late October. Any moment, a young giraffe might leap from it and gallop for the nearest pear tree. And when the giraffe lowers its neck to the topmost branch, I shall think of mother pouring water from a kettle older than me into a cup older than she. A task she still does well as rising steam surrounds her. A dream. Aaron, whom I haven't held in years, was living in some dingy basement, lit by harsh fluorescent bulbs, still poor and sad, still beautiful. A life spent writing the life of Brahms. He didn't ask, but wanted me to tuck him in a drawer among his folded shirts. I watched him while he fell asleep. The thing no one ever says about fog is that it has its own language. Enter it and be immersed within its rigorous, elusive grammars. In fog, we observe what it means to not be able to observe. The space between articulation and unknowing is the fluency of fog. Another word I'm reaching for is doubt. Some say a source of great distress, but can it not as well erect a palace of the possible? I pad from room to room, hoping this opacity will last a little longer, because once it lifts, the hedgerows and houses will be nothing more than what they are. Mother isn't getting better. Soon preparing tea will seem as strange as folding former lovers with their shirts inside a dresser drawer. Any moment, the dashing Brahms of 1853 may step forward with the score of his third piano sonata tucked beneath one arm. Remoteness has its own attractions. 3 years after we first kissed, I knew Erin was devoted to a ghost. Whatever you imagine, 15 steps from where you stand, you imagine because in that moment you are prone. It sounds subjective, and it is, but should you move, then move you must. Every inclination bows to chance. Partial fogs, one kind of fog, inside the encyclopedia of fog. Any moment, my mother's partial fog might lift. If so, I'll tell her what transpired while she was eating pears with Brahms, though nothing will amaze her more than learning it's October. So that's that poem. And the spaces in between are represented by little spaces on the page. It's like a series of little notes, hence the title. I'll read you a couple more poems like that, and then I'm going to read you a sequence. This poem is called Once Again. The deer are eating arborvitae. A newlywed removes her ring. She wages all in red 19. Scriabin's mustache captivates in ways his mystic chord does not. By candlelight, I butcher Brahms, receive a round of keen applause. An old hag stitches reap as rape, then hangs the proverb in her foyer. Once again, some sage insists we climb a mountain to reach God. But God is busy in the valley, bagging all the fallen apples. Read you this one. It's a weird little one called Draft. I am troubled by a covered wagon. Huge contrivance, unhitched in a field of heather. Committees in my head explore the ways and means of its removal. This poem was written a year after I took notes on it. I observed something, and then after I observed it, I just wrote, your little notes functions on your phone, and I just wrote a whole bunch of notes about what I was seeing, and then just kept it there. And about a year later, I looked and said, "Oh, I've got this. Let me see what I can do with it." And this is what came up. It's called Ogonquit, August 2021. Late summer, sunset at the sea. A boy, a towhead, maybe 3, wanders from his parents, sipping margaritas in the lawn. He pets a granite boulder, circles it, kicks pebbles from the footpath into teeming beds of apple mint, paws a tall hydrangea, rips a blossom from a stem, holds it, drops it, picks it up, then crushes it into his hair. Gavin, first the mother calls. He rubs it on his arm, his neck. Gavin, shouts the father now, a little sweet, a little stern. What's left, the boy slips down his shirt as if, and who's to say this is not so, to keep the lovely thing he's injured close. You know what flash fiction is?
Yes.
Those like really short little things that sometimes people propose them as prose poems.
Here it's.
There you go. This one's called flash fiction. One day, near the end of day, a wind hurled 37 harps against a cattle barn. But the barn held nothing, not even sheet music. There you go. And I'll read you another short one. This one is called Called. You gave me a leaf and I called it a bird. Bravo, Fancy Pants. You are now among the dispossessed, seeking shelter in a nest of verbs. They're not all that. These are strange. They're strange. Yeah. And I'll read you this one. It's called One Night. While we were drinking gin, a friend confessed. When he was 20, bored, in need of cash, he sold himself for $50. Some stranger drove him to a cabin in the woods where he was made to sweep the floor in nothing but an apron. Of course, I had my share of questions. Questions I did not want answered, preferring then to roam among uncertainties, deriving pleasure from a wilderness of doubt. Just now I had to reach for Rome, align it with a wilderness, because in this diminishing sonnet, self-awareness settles in, supplanting the imagination. How do you continue when too many paths assert themselves, effectively lead you astray? I use the word diminishing sonnets. There's about 8 poems in the book that have this form where the first stanza is 5 lines, the second is 4, 3, and then it goes to 2. Those are 14 lines. So I call them diminishing. Sometimes you do what you gotta do to get it done. I'll read you another one of these diminishing sonnets. Prompt. A story I may write someday. Each year the mother gives her son a sundress, always sleeveless, white, with dark blue buttons up the front, to wear while barefoot in the attic. It begins as whim, but when the boy does not object, continues into adolescence, extends past puberty until, arriving at the threshold, dark hair dusting chest and thighs, the ritual is discontinued. He will not marry, chases women. Seduction, he explains when old, occurs where there is sympathy. Anyone know who was what poet I was writing about? It's Rilke. His mother used to dress him up, and he wound up being, in the older age, he wound up being quite a ladies' man. I always thought those 2 facts were quite interesting. So, my brother John is born on April 20th, recent birthday. In addition to Hitler's birthday and my brother's birthday, what else do we know about 420? What?
Is it birthday? No, that's
No.
Something comes out of the earth that day.
Well,
It's
birthday,
marijuana.
who pretty new, isn't it?
It's marijuana. It's
Oh.
the marijuana day. It's like the, so 420 is marijuana, celebrating marijuana.
Okay.
And so on April 20th, 2021, something happened on a national scale that stopped people from focusing on marijuana or Hitler for that matter. But I didn't mention Hitler in here. Last night, so many set aside their hashtag marijuana memes to show relief in sadness for the Derek Chauvin verdict. One man lost forever, while another faces sentencing. Today, my friends and I post pictures of our gardens, stalled by sheets of snow, so clean, so white on branch and bough, so utterly unwelcome. For spring is now embraced by all, and what is past should stay the past, until the future calls it forth again. And we ask, what is different now? By the way, that day, out of nowhere, we got a bunch of snow. I guess you can figure it out. Here's some, I grew up Catholic, and it never leaves you. This poem is called Atonement. And this is the first time I'm reading it since I've had it. They say something 81 times and you'll no longer not remember. Still a boy, I did a thing I can't forget. And as instructed, said 80 Hail Marys. And then I'll read a few more poems and then I'll stop. But this one is called Recitations. And it is based on something called a mondegreen, which is a mishearing. You mishear something, and so then you construct meaning based on what you misheard. When I was growing up, we grew up in, like I said, a Catholic school. It was a bunch of recitations of things. One of them was the Our Father, or the Lord's Prayer. And there were certain words there that I misheard. So, our Father who art in heaven. And because it was so archaic, I didn't know what the who art in heaven was. I'm like, why is he doing art? Anything, Or I pledge allegiance to the flag, and I remember that was what my mother used to clean furniture. So, things like that. So these poems are based on those mishearings, and they're based on recitations, 3 recitations. One is the Lord's Prayer, one is the Pledge Allegiance, and the other one is the Guardian Angel Prayer. 1, the Lord's Prayer. So many things confused me, such as why the Father, not my father, or any of the collared men our fathers had allowed to scold or shake us when we failed to be whatever they expected in that moment, stood in heaven doing art while we hunched over folding tables in a basement painting with our fingers. For years, the word I heard was hallowed, and imagined all believers shoveled tunnels through the earth to shout thy name, which would return as echoes, spaced in intervals, a sound skipping like a stone on water. Imagined thy name, whatever it was, needed absence to manifest presence, like a lit candle in a gutted pumpkin, or blackberries poured in a poured out gourd. I thought the name for day was daily bread. Who would have thought the Lord's allotment, or that we would have to plead for it? We knew better than to trespass in a neighbor's yard, or in the junkyard for an empty bottle to smash against discarded cinder. And though we did, these hardly seemed like acts for which forgiveness was required. The squirrels that tore apart our lawn were furry, scurried miracles. To be delivered from. It contradicted what we knew of trucks that carried food to stores, of postmen stuffing envelopes in numbered boxes, red roses, pink carnations dispatched at our mother's doors. Evil. How I loved that word. The long E relishing its drawn duration, a bridge of sound, successive letters walked across, the voluptuous V, the clipped I, followed by a lustful L that begged the tongue, once it had touched the roof of the mouth, to free itself, or one might say, to be delivered of the pressure, pushed past lips no longer pursed, and in the wake of air released, perform the gesture that means lick. 2, Pledge of Allegiance. I don't need to read the Pledge of Allegiance to you to get that. I think you'll figure out where the mishearings occurred. I polished tables in the backs of chairs, for legions of Americans. The witch, who stands for one republic, is a nation with a broomstick under God. Invisible, I face a tilted flag, whose bands of red and white bid me to place a hand on heart and so proclaim, though not too fast, lest and justice be for all injustice, the breach and feral twin of liberty. Now, the guardian angel prayer, I'm not sure if people know that one. That one is, angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom his love commits me here. Ever this day be at my side, to light and guard, to rule and guide. Amen. And there were so many things about that little prayer that I just didn't understand. Such as, why are there deer in it? Things like that. When you're a kid, you don't understand. Demeter trances me to calm. Not now, but then, for I go there, returning to a time and space when kneeling at the foot of my bed, head bowed to facing palms that touched and pointed skyward, pardon, heavenward. Whatever angst I dragged into the room dissolved. Beat one, beat two. And if God's angel could be guarded by a giant stag, all white, a rack of two-tiered tines, his guardian inside the garden, I could be committed here and still feel safe and slowly understand the word apart from crime or perpetrator. Now, the last section I'm going to read, it is an 11-section poem, and I'm not going to read all of that for you. But it's called Glimpse. And I thought I would put it at the end of the book because this is moments where, when you're in fog, there's moments in the fog works through the whole book, and there are moments. What makes fog so magical is when there are the moments that glimpse. You can see something so vividly in the fog, and then it's gone again. And so this is as close as I come to autobiography in the book. So I'll read you a few of these, not all 11. That would be indulgent. 1. I traveled to St. John's to savor fog. I should mention this. Everywhere I go, I've gone to a lot of places where I wanted fog or cloudiness. I've gone to Scotland, I've gone to Ireland, I've gone to Newfoundland, places like that, and I've always wanted to go there because of the fog, because of all that. And every time I've gone, it's been completely sunny and really hot. And everyone always says, "You're so lucky," right? So I traveled to St. John's to savor fog, to glimpse through mist the vivid hues of staggered row homes off the shore, to spy along the seaboard trail the fragment of a western moose. It was my wish to be in Bishop's verse, where the opaque provides a means of apprehending what is pure. But I arrived to days of sun, where all shine lucid and coherent. I was told this was a gift, and tried to show my gratitude. Instead of a kaleidoscope, my father handed me a ball glove, tinted midnight blue. My brothers muttered, "Lucky bastard." In real life, it wasn't my brothers, it was my teammates. 3. In college, on occasion, I would speak of books I had not read, construct coherent comments out of digests, hearsay, endnotes, blurbs. Yes, of course I was quite lonely. What little I had learned convinced me art and science were related, maybe brothers, almost twins, attending the same party in different clothes. Brief image poems overwhelmed me, their immediate and strict intensities exposing me like nibbled wire. Once, quite drunk, a boy I wanted saw I wanted him and cupped my nape inside his palm. My hand still searches for his other hand. 4. When a car slid over ice into my brother, the impact sent him sailing upside down through sky, a body in a field of clouds and branches. I heard the car door open and a man whose face I can't remember crying, "Oh my God, dear God, I didn't mean," but not before my brother thudded softly in a hill of snow. I leapt great mounds to fetch our mother. "Is he alive?" she cried. I had no words. Father died 2 years before. I needed her to bear the brunt of what together we would see. A young boy climbing out of the bank, lithe and loping toward the road. The man beside him, dusting white from his blue coat. That was very much, everything about that was true. Sometimes I put little details in there that aren't true. I'm going to read you about 3 more. It wasn't this photo. Aftermath's a sexy word, beginning as it must in ending. Thing occurs, car crashes into storefront glass, frenzied people spread apart like roaches when a light is switched. While ending folds its weary arms, emergence pries them open. Fast breaking news, a femur was found among coins in the rubble. Matter almost always matters. Yesterday, a riot of plums. Today, each branch defiant in its nakedness. Given that, now this we say. Poem paints quixotic wind. Photo frames gazebo, lightning charred to sculpture. When we applaud what's ruined, do we celebrate the ruinous? I've got 2 more I'll read for you. All right, I'll do this one. Anyone do art here? I'm just curious. Okay. So you know this old cliche, which I'm about to start. It's when you're talking to an artist about certain orientation of a canvas or a paper, there's an old rule of thumb, so to speak. Vertical means portrait. Landscapes are in horizontal. A useful rule we're often told for study of a painting or a photograph, regardless of the theme or era. A tool to structure expectation and response, to frame and yes, facilitate an understanding which, in time, through countless applications, serves a kind of tyranny. The key to our perception traps us, bars divergent entrances. Remember using chopsticks your first time? Or longhand with your other hand? I, today in London, looking left instead of right, was nearly rendered horizontal. This is the last one I'll read, and thank you. I don't want to die again. My father speaks with so much care that I suspect his words have been rehearsed, as if he knew he'd need his strength to say them with precision. An incantation or a spell some shrub or snake once taught him in the forest of his elsewhere. I don't respond, don't shoo the flies surrounding him, as over time I have refined a pose of inattention. For there is no again. He has gone and gone and gone, and always in the same red cap. Thank you.
Thank you. So I always like to get people's reactions first. And
Who hated it?
Mine, yeah. Questions?
Well, I do have a comment. I really enjoy self-disclosure because I could see you walking in here, but now I know so much more about you and the dimensions of your life.
Oh, okay.
And I thought it was very beautiful that you brought your mother in and your brother and your father, and you wove yourself in those people, and it's beautiful. I loved it. Yeah.
You know, someone reviewed a book. I got lucky to have it reviewed.
Mm.
And someone noted that the use of brother, father, mother, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Those were, they could be real or they could be archetypes. And I decided to keep it at that level.
Right.
There are no names in the book, nothing like that. I don't do
Yeah.
that. So
Mhm.
it's not a tell-all. So
Right, right.
as Stanley Kunitz once said,
Yeah.
I don't want poems that reveal secrets.
Mhm.
I want poems that are filled with them.
Exactly, that's right.
That's a wise
Yeah, it is.
policy
Yeah.
of the family.
I think the other wise policy is if you have to lie through your teeth.
Oh, yeah.
If it serves the
Oh,
poem.
yeah.
It serves the poem, all right?
Yeah. As long as you're not distorting or harming somebody in doing so, right? That's the big thing. That was always for me the concern.
Yeah.
Are you the only writer in the family?
In my immediate family, yes. I mean, my sister Paula was a journalist and now moved into software engineering and makes more money than I could ever hope to make.
Yeah, poet might not have been the best choice. What was the reaction? I have your family here in the room. How did your family react when they realized you were writing poetry or a poet?
I don't think there was
I-
any real.
I was no surprise, that's.
You were not surprised.
No, I was always a total reading dork and stuff like that. I used to read encyclopedias at home, and I was an English major in school.
Right.
There was nothing about that. John used to come to my read. John has gone to several of my readings before, and the first reading I went to was about a guy named Joey I knew who was an ex-con, and they were in his voice, and John was just laughing hysterically. I'll never forget that. And they were not like these poems. They were quite different. Yeah.
And I noticed too, the way that you really begin a lot of the time with an object or, want to call it objective crow, whatever. You begin with an object and kind of move very quickly into something that is very human. Is that something you consciously do, or with fog is an obvious example here?
I mean, I think years of reading what I would have. I mean, I mentioned Stanley Kunitz, which is huge. Elizabeth Bishop is always huge to me. Those were big names for me. So I mean, there was that. But I mean, I would say listening to Messiaen, the composer, his piano transcriptions of bird songs, things like that. A lot of the spaces that you hear, and like he'll play something and then there'll be like silence, and then he'll play something again. So I was exploiting silence. A lot of ideas I got for this come from different sources, but yeah, it's constantly. I think the idea of working with an object is always a sound. I hate entering a poem going, I feel. Now, Jenny had mentioned earlier about a reading series where people would go and they would write poems for performances based on, or like, what was it called again? Slam poetry, where they would write about things that bummed them out. I think it's great. Things that really annoyed them. Get your grievances out, yes. But if I'm going to write something I'm going to put into a book, I'm generally not. I mean, I try to. There was a lot of work that was done before these. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these poems were figured out. A lot of the emotions that were processed before. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. There was a lot more I in slam. Somebody asked me about slam the other day, and spoken word generally.
And I love listening to it.
What's
It's great.
the difference? And I said the difference is it really is a different art form. It really is. It's much closer to performance in theater, I think, than it is to
And stand up,
all those things.
which I love all of those things.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
different.
But if you're coming to here to be entertained that way, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Yeah. I'll tell you the story about how it came into being,
Yeah.
if that helps.
Yeah.
I was the chair of the English department for 5 years, which was awful. Don't ever do it if you can get away without it. I never stopped writing reviews. I never stopped reading, but I went kind of quiet with my poetry. There were some exceptions. There were some things I would do to kind of get a poem out here and there. And there was probably I had about 75 poems after I was done with chair, and I think maybe 10 of them were okay, and the rest of them were crap, and I threw them away. And when I was done, the department threw me a party. And it was nice. It was like, oh, great, now I get the summer to like completely like, just, and then the next morning, we got medical confirmation that my mother had dementia. So that summer was really exciting. So when I went back to teaching, it felt like a break. It felt like, like I felt like I was on vacation. And that's when the poems really started to come. Most of the poems came. And when the book was done, I was like, okay, now I'm going to shop them out to various places and stuff. And then basically, as soon as it was done, like a couple days later, my former publisher that had done the other books wrote and said, do you have anything? I said, I do. And I know this never happens. This was like so bizarre. I said, I do, but can you give me a month to revise it? And since my bathroom was being worked on, and I only have one bathroom in the house, I said, I'll go to the Finger Lakes and the water. And it was so expensive that I couldn't afford it. So I got in a plane and went to England, which was half the price. It was half the price of the Finger Lakes. So it was like unbelievable. And that's where I revised it on the Atlantic Ocean. And like, so nothing has ever happened to me this way before. So it was like, wow. And so I came back and I'm like, well, I'm ready to give it to him now. And I expect maybe in like a few months he'll get back to me. And about a month later, he got back and said, we'll do it. I'm like, oh, great. So I got about a year, because that's usually what happens. Because then we want to put it out in the fall. So it was like 4 months. So like I said, no, it's never happened like that before. So I don't expect it'll ever happen like that again.
Did you get your fog when you were in England? You must have
Nope.
got some. None.
I went to Cornwall. It was like, the sky looked like this the entire time, and it was about 80 degrees, 80, 85. And the water was warmer than it would be in Maine because of the currents. So I was able to swim in the ocean. And it was so surreal. It was like, I keep hearing there's fog, but I got nothing.
Wow.
You need to go someplace sunny, and then maybe you'll get it.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking so, yeah. Thinking that that's the case. But I was okay with it. I was like, it was like, whatever I get, I just wanted to be on the ocean. That's great. And I was very privileged to be able to do that. So
You mentioned your iPhone as like a place where you started,
some of the notes, yeah, some of that, like,
is that how it often works for you?
no. But I mean, I've started now with the notes function, and there's one of my favorite poems in here I did not read is called Fog Machine. When you go to a bar or a club and they got a fog machine. So I had about 4 pages, maybe about close to 1,500 words written on fog machines, and I'd done a lot of research on what they are. I said, what do I do with this? So I wanted to write a poem in 3 parts, where each part had 3 parts, and they were all in 17 syllables. So, I mean, it was just, and that just came to me, the way that it would work. But I needed a year to figure out how to do it. So yeah, there was, the notes function helps, some of the revisions I did here, what I did was I would revise them on the notes function on the phone and bring them back to home, bring them back to the apartment where I was staying, the Airbnb, and then I would just send them to myself, and then I would open them up and compare the revisions and stuff. And so I don't normally use the phone, but it became an important vehicle in this book. So it's gonna.
Do you usually plan a poem fairly carefully before you try to draft it, or you just go?
It's got to be surprised. It's got to be. And what I often do is use some sort of trick or thing to get a bit of language, whether it's found language. There's a section in here called The Bridge Between, and it's a long sequence of, and I have to say they're lovely. They're these short little lyric pieces. And what I did was there was a nun wrote a book in the 70s about women in biblical literature. And it was just one of those things you find in like the little lending libraries. And I opened it and I just read through it. It was, typical 70s kind of stuff. And I circled 3 words on each page. And I said, okay, those 3 words have to be in each little poem I write. And that's, things like that, little games you come up with. Another thing I do is what they call homophonic translation. So you take a poem written in another language, and I like to use German a lot. And then what I'll do is I'll translate it for sound, not for sense. So what does the German word sound like in English? Like, what's an English sounding word that sounds like that German word? Like you say, for example, Achtung, which means attention, and Achtung. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And so I'll do like this weird word salad, and then I'll just start revising towards making some sort of sense out of it.
That sounds like you like most poets, you like to play a lot with words and language.
I don't like the idea of people mapping out a poem and saying, it's gonna end here. To me, I don't like that. And you can hear it when someone does it that way, it feels forced. It feels like a thesis.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
And you make them
I want to be surprised. If I'm not surprised by the end, no one else is gonna be surprised.
So what do you think was the reason why you couldn't write while you were doing the chair?
Oh, God.
What do you think was
You don't want to
happening?
know. No, I'm just
Your
kidding.
brain?
No, I'm being recorded, but that's it, meetings, it's very, when you get into teaching English, you're not necessarily thinking in a corporate mindset, and that's
Mhm.
kind of bad.
Mhm.
And then you deal with a lot of student complaints, people coming to you crying every day,
Right.
and then you get teachers coming to you crying every day, and there's a lot, people calling you at all hours every day, including weekends. And there was never, for 5 years, I didn't have a break. Like
Oh,
every day,
okay.
I looked at email every day, and I did it also during the pandemic.
Mm,
So
okay.
afterwards, I was like, yeah, I'm done.
I think they call it service for a reason.
Yeah.
It really is. So I one last question. Sure. Did you really have to say 80 Hail Marys and why?
You'll never find out why, but I did hear that there is this thing, 81 is the number for some reason, that if you say something 81 times, you'll never forget it.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
so I thought I'd use that idea.
Mhm.
Sounds like why people have children. Say something 81 times.
Yeah.
Your kids don't remember it.
No, that's right. It's
Right.
blind children, right? It's,
They have to hear it 81 times. So you can say it 81 times. Yes, that was it. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
It was a
you.
lot of fun. I'm duty bound to tell you that I did bring some copies if you're interested. If not, that's perfectly fine, but they're here afterwards if you want them. I look forward to hearing your work.
Again, thank you, Tony. Another round of applause for Tony, please. I'm going to jump right to open micers, people who have done plenty of features on their own. I know the quality of their work, and all from Buffalo today, I think. We have a novelist over there, but he's working on a novel and he doesn't have anything. But you will next time, right?
I will next time.
All right, good.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The first of our readers following Tony is Scott Williams, distinguished poet from Buffalo. Scott, come on.
All right. I got a funny story. You may or may not have it funny. But weeks ago, I was looking at my email and I am not home. And I get an email saying that my poem was rejected by Jerry Rattle. I didn't recall sending them a poem. And if I did, I didn't know what poem I would send them. So let me go to Submittable and see what's on Submittable. What Submittable says the poem's rejected. But also on Submittable were two notes that two of my poetry books were accepted. One is a full-length poetry book, and I don't know when it's going to come out, but it's accepted. And by the way, every poem in that book at 17 syllables. So I'm going to read you. Okay, here we go. Something from that book. Okay. From the thick orchard, petals flit in autumn wind, down, down, down to rot. Another one. People smiled all day. I head high, yet no one said, "Hey, your flies unzipped." Another one. I smoke weed at home. I eat chewables at work. What day is today? Now also, let's see. Keep going, where are they? We'll be here. She woke me at 2 when she kicked my sore right leg. Love moved me closer. If I would name it, when I would call it Steve Lewandowski, but it's not, it's called Best Buddy. I fell asleep when my best buddy and I meet. Coffee isn't enough. Let's see. This is yet no climate change, no one. Rain 11 inches. Floating trucks, buses, and cars. It's all cyclical. Yet no climate change too. Hurricane tosses, kitchens, bedrooms, and some trees. It's all cyclical. Climate change, yet no climate change. Number 3, burning heat for days, 40 degrees Celsius. It's all cyclical. Oh, let's skip to number 7. Wee hour of morning, birds whistle, sound, oh, it's not, oh, that is, oh, never mind. Wee hour of morning, birds whistle, silent cats tread, heavy trucks growl deep. That's enough of you guys. So, just a few of 300 poems there in that book.
Wait, before you go, you read the one being kicked in your sleep
Yeah.
again, because the ending dropped off.
There it is. She woke me at 2 when she kicked my sore right leg. Love moved me closer.
Next is, we are ending with the Graces today, Donna and George. Donna, Grace.
Okay.
I'm just got a new book.
Yeah.
All right.
Under heaven, in the church of Baruch de Spinoza, the sacred lives in leaves and water, the sweet breath of lilacs, in the gospel according to lime green trees, waving through fences in small city yards. Beaches hugging the lake's tidy shores to the hymn of lapping waves. Here, birdsong is scripture. Sermons come in happy yips from the puppy next door who evangelizes in exclamation points, calling me to open the lattice gate where he anoints me with kisses. You will find the God of Spinoza in the comfort and joy of a friend's embrace, on a walk in the open air, not hiding in motel room nightstands, or sleeping on wooden pews in brick and mortars where men preach from lecterns and pulpits, sometimes under the gaze of granite angels and marble saints, where the blood of martyrs stains glass windows. Dreams and distractions. Time was, a map was a thing to be done with after the trip. A crumpled chart of memories and food stains, coffee rings, inked in routes, circled landmarks, off the beaten paths, telephone numbers, random notes, and a confusion of creases that served as the official record of every failed attempt at refolding. I look up from my map reading to watch the cat on a reconnaissance mission behind the gossamer curtain, eyeing the trio of blue candles next to the window. where prisms from the blue crystal suncatcher dance on the wall. The car sits in the driveway, our suitcases gather dust in the closet, and next to the atlas, tall spines of travel guides and crossword puzzles lean against the wall in their starched uniforms, waiting for the service bell. And one last one. Time. Microwaves nuke the seconds, ovens bake the minutes, church bells toll the hours, atoms clock the days, calendars march along month by month, ball drops ring in the years, songs reminisce the decades. We count ourselves by the number of birthdays in a lifetime, as time crawls up our bodies and steals what made us, what got us through.
And George Grace.
Speech.
Hereinafter to be referred to as Mr. Donna Grace. I always wanted to use hereinafter in a poetry reading. I wrote this. This is the title of my first collection. I've included the poem here in a hastening countdown from infinity. I wrote this poem during a drive from Corning along the 390 back to Buffalo one night. And I was just mesmerized. We started out in a fog down in Corning, and then a misty rain, and then cleared up. American Stonehenge. Miles beyond the last town, houses poke out of the dark and fade away again into the jagged forest and ether pitch like cards in a dark stage sleight of hand. But not before we see how you live. A tattered sofa, a weathered wicker chair, brooding on your front porch, a tractor rusting by the barn in the odd glow of a mercury vapor light, a flea market tapestry sagging in sunlight, vigilance above a fireplace, lime green walls, a lackluster reminder of some vague marital milestone, decades wished away or just forgotten. National Public Radio is fading to a staccato punctuated buzz, and I've had it up to here with force-fed top 40 and Sunday Bible thumpers, piercing the airwaves in defiance of distance and sensibility. What would we be, Americans, without our sacred right to discard? Oncoming drivers, bleary-eyed nomads stay the course, casting ralliform strings of light along guardrails, reeling them in like fishing lines before slipping silently into the twilight of their own vanishing points. Moonbeams fill from eviscerated clouds like fingers caressing the earth. Beyond a distant ridge, a mystic diffusion divides sky and earth, constellations of sodium vapor orange congeal into galaxies, pretending a town or city around the curve. A mall intrudes and passes like a carnival train. Houses stand silhouetted against the nation's winter clouds. Amber trapezoids bend and wrinkle on front lawns, dim projections of blissful ignorance and lamplight warmth snug beyond the window dressings. Dinner sits ready. A family gathers now, maybe never again. Another reborn of repentance or crisis. Curiosity, coffee of my soul, clamors to know why you would root yourselves here. like those pagans who lived faceless and soon forgotten amidst the great stone stands of Stonehenge. But I am ever going, never arriving, visiting with neither time nor the wherewithal to stay, a casual tourist to the fringes of your life's territory, trying to remember you, your way, wanting to gather your narrative into my loving embrace, seeking when my canvas or blank paper begs a decision to define you of what you've meant to me in passing. I had two main friends named Jim. Not here. One later in life started wearing pyramids on his head. I need not elaborate on that. He thought it would bring him great health. He discovered after about a year of doing that it did kind of sharpen his razor blade so he could shave more easily. This is another Jim. The world of Jim came in 3 novels about the transcendent figure of Jim. He never rewrote, he told me. Why should he? Unlike more mortal writer types, Homer, Hemingway, Stoll, Tolstoy, et al., he wrote it just one time and killed it first stab. And another thing he told me, I haven't read a fiction work in 40 years. He didn't want to be derivative. I protested. How could he escape the fate we all share as humans of needing to revise, correct, improve, and why not read other works to learn from masters what could be done with words? Then he offered me a handsome sum to read you love this, you're all poets, the 4th book of his trilogy. And just remove the double thes, you know, the little stuff, no major editing. I barely made it through 5 pages. A 78-word opening sentence by some miracle, not a run-on. A 6-sided pentagon. This is what I saw, he said. Aforementioned in a fiction novel, not used as dialogue from an officious police officer, e.g., the aforementioned perp killed the aforementioned Vic, but as a cumbersome reference to something in the narrative that came before. Now, having finished the 13th book of his trilogy, I have surrendered to the likelihood that no force on earth could drain his creative wellspring. And so with the launching of the 14th Testament to his self-adoration, even the very God he worshiped must have told him, whoa, you've gone too far. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, George. I'll give you guys one because I have a new one. This is sort of a sillier register, but I'm writing a book that's inspired by operas, particularly Italian operas. This is Turandot. The story of Turandot is about an exiled, I think he's a general. But he's in the court of this empress named Turandot, who is rather cruel, and she is going to kill him unless he can answer these 3 riddles. And the famous aria from Turandot is Nessun Dorma, right? And it ends with the word vincerò, which in Italian means I will win. So I always thought, part of me always thought this was really funny.
because I'd studied Italian, so I'm always thinking of conjugations, like what would the aria have been if it were, I would win, or, what if I won, some other conjugation of the verb, so that's where this comes from, playing with verb conjugations. Vincerò, and the last word of this aria, if you know the aria, is sung usually with the accent on the wrong syllable. It should be vincerò, instead it's like vincerò. Even with the accent on the wrong syllable, I will win. No, I will be victorious over someone who wants to kill me for not answering her questions. But really, vincerei, I would win if winning were worthwhile. Ma chi vince? Who wins in love? I smile at Liu, she dies. If I had smiled at you, se ti avessi sorriso, what would you have done? A dramatic hypothetical. So she thought to ask a dagger to teach her what love should be. At that point, we were winning. Vincevamo. My long lost father and I. How he got lost? Who knows? Io non so. Nessuno sa. We only sing Nessun dorma, but everybody sleeps through the second act. The Principessa would have won, vincerebbe, if by dawn she had learned my name, which, since it's foreign here, she can't pronounce correctly. If she had been Persian, like me, had spoken Farsi, avesse parlatola, I would already be no more, or else we would not have needed riddles to love. We could have been married, ci potremmo stati sposati, like ordinary people who want sometimes to kill each other, sometimes vincere, to win. I do want to say that tomorrow we have Bart White.